Hi and welcome to the Witching Hour Audio YouTube channel. Thanks for being here. My name's Sean, and this morning I wanted to explain my process for converting live drums into Midi. There's a lot of reasons you might choose to do this, but the main reason, of course, is to add samples to your existing live tracks. Maybe there's a certain character that's missing from what you originally recorded, or maybe you've gotten tracks in that are a complete mess and you need to replace part of it. You might also have a style of music like technical death metal where you will stylistically choose to sample replace the kick drums so that they sound a lot more like a one-shot machine gun. So yeah, a lot of different reasons. But what you will want to do is do this conversion from live drums into MIDI very accurately, and this does take a lot of time to do properly. I'm a Cubase user, and thankfully, Cubase lets you click a few buttons and automatically detect all of your hit points. But then when you look a little bit closer, you will discover that a lot of those are just a little bit off, or some are missing, or some exist where there is no actual drum hit. So what we then need to do is go through from start to finish and hit by hit ensure that our hit points have been detected quite perfectly. What will happen if you don't do this is you'll run into something called phase cancellation, and every audio sample that we have, or every piece of audio, has a positive and negative waveform. And if you have your samples and your original drum tracks firing at slightly different times, you might find that as it goes from the positive of your original one, the sample might be triggering early, so that where they both line up, one is firing positive and one is firing negative. And our waveform actually corresponds with the speaker movement. So your original waveform in the positive might be trying to push your speaker out, but your sample will be trying to pull it back in. And so your speaker won't move properly, and you'll either not hear the sound, or if you do, it'll be phasey. And if you have this consistently through your track where they're misfiring, you'll have all these strange things going on with your audio, which nobody wants that business in their life. So I'm going to show you my process of doing this from start to finish. It does take a really long time, but I like to do it very carefully at the start, so then it's done, and then I can focus on mixing when that part of the process comes through, which is the best bit. So yeah, we'll jump into it. I'll show you how this works for Cubase, and hopefully you find this helpful. Okay, so I've opened up an old session, and we're going to have a look at the snare top track and hear how it sounds. This was done in a very small rehearsal room, so the sound quality is not great, but for the purposes of this demonstration, it should allow us to detect every note and convert it to MIDI. So first thing we want to do in Cubase is double click the waveform, and it'll open up the bottom region, and it looks a little like this. So I can zoom in and out using my G and H, and what I want to do is come over to the left menu. If this isn't already open, you just want to click this arrow near hit points and then click edit hit points. And what we want to do is it'll have a go at doing it already, but we want to adjust our threshold either up or down to where it will detect all of the snare hits that we can see visibly. If we go too low, it'll pick up too much other junk and put points in where we don't need them. So we want to find a nice middle ground as a starting point. Now, if I come in and zoom in, we can have a closer look at the hits themselves. If I click a region, it'll play just that from that detected snare onward until it finds the next detected one. So if we have a bit of a listen here, that very first one, this is 2 double hits. So the first one starts here and the second there. Now if we have a look at this closely, I like to zoom in. We can get quite crazy close with it, but I like to do it from where the waveform's solid. This first one's great. If I click my right arrow, it'll take me to the second. And this one luckily is great too. So our first two are spot on. So thank you, Cubase. If I click right, it'll keep taking me through to each hit it's detected. Great. Now this one is actually a double hit, so we can see the second one that hasn't been picked up. It's a deliberate flam as part of a roll. So we are going to have a look and just add one in. So if I hold Alt and then click, it'll add one in for us. And there you go. You can hear the two separate hits quite clearly. So far, it's detecting them very, very clearly, which is great. So we're going to scroll through until we find one that isn't quite right. All right, if we have a look here, our starting point of this snare, it's detected the snare, but it's quite a few samples off to the left. So we're going to take our hit point and manually move it over. The whole purpose of this is if I had have left it there, the sample that I'd be adding to this snare would have started here. And what may happen is, as you can see, the waveform goes down, up, down, up. So that would have started that process here. And what could have happened is we end up our sample playing down, up, down, and then up here, which is the inverse of the existing snare. So we'd have our up here as the existing snare is going down, and then vice versa all the way through. And you'd actually have those two sounds cancelling each other out, which is quite a big problem. You'll have that snare disappearing or losing all its power. You especially notice it in the bottom end, so you'll have a few hits that'll just have almost no bass or disappear completely. So that's why we do this all the way through. I'm going to go through and find a few more. All right, this one here is ever so slightly late. That's out enough where it's worth moving. For the purpose of this video, I might not nudge every tiny little one that's off, but we'll go through a few more and just have a look. All right, so we've just gone through a big sequence there where they were all very, very nicely picked up. Usually I find on the harder hits, it is a lot more accurate. And then in the middle of rolls or maybe a blast beat, you'll find that the detection goes quite off and you need to do a lot more fixing. So this one here, we'll move that to where it belongs and then we'll keep going. Now I can hear here, if I press that sample, that it's more than one hit's being detected. So if I zoom out, you can actually see that second one is here. And then add one in and keep moving along. All right, here's another one that's off. Pull it through. Another one, pull it through. So you can go back if you miss one. There we go. And there we are too. All right, so I think you get the idea. What I'll typically do is go through for the entire snare track and check them all. And then we'll convert them to Midi. We won't necessarily choose a sample unless you want to check that it's working, which we'll do in a moment. But we do this for the snare drum, kick drums, and toms, so essentially all shells. It is a very painstaking process, but once you've done this, you absolutely can have the confidence that any sampling that you do, or if you use these for gates with spikes, etc., which we may cover in another video, you can just have the confidence that your audio is all completely solid and everything is working as it should, which is a real great peace of mind, and you won't have to come back and fix this while you're mixing. So the next thing I would do is we want to convert this obviously to our MIDI notes. Now there's a little bit of a thing I noticed. Essentially to do it, we click MIDI notes here and then we end up with a menu, but it's worth mentioning if you click that and do that, it'll only do it for this one region. It took me a little while to work this out. So what you actually have to do is Control A to select all of these regions we've just done. Click MIDI notes, and now I'm going to get it to export that to our first selected track, which I have selected the MIDI track I want to send it to. So click OK. That should now have worked. I'm going to press F5 and close this region. And if we have a look now, it's created a MIDI track in this section. And if we zoom right in, we should notice that every single snare hit should be phase accurate. There we go, with the start of our MIDI note and the start of our original audio. So if we go through and check those, you can see every single one of them lines up pretty perfectly, which is what we wanted. From there, what you'll want to do is create a place where you're going to trigger your samples. I've actually pre-done that. It's an audio track in our inserts. I've got an instance of trigger 2. I've loaded a sample set on there. You will want that to be sending it to the same, receiving from the same note, which is C-1, and that should be triggering fine. But importantly, from that MIDI track, if you click here, you want to be sending that track into your snare track, so it's your trigger track, sorry, so that it's receiving it. So there it is. So ideally, I have my MIDI track ready to go. I create the snare trigger track, and then once that's created, I then make sure it is sent to that spot there. So if we have a listen to that now, I will turn off our trigger track and just listen to the snare on its own. And then we'll add our trigger track as well. And obviously that's not playing because I have not enabled our snare MIDI, so now it should work. So you sort of see how that works. It's not the perfect sample, and obviously the snare itself needs a lot of EQing and work, but that is essentially how this process works. And now we know that we have phase accurate, sample perfect MIDI tracks to work with. The other thing that you can do that's worth mentioning is if I double click our MIDI track, I can select all the MIDI. If you don't like how strongly they're played, you can increase the velocity. And if you find in doing so there's too much difference between the soft and hard hits, you can actually come to our little slider on the right here and compress them so that they are closer, or expand them further. Really, it's quite flexible. So yeah, and that's about it. So thank you for watching through to the end. It's a very dry topic, very aware of that, but I'm hoping that does come in handy for people that are still learning how a lot of this works. I know it's something that I use in every production and it is useful to me, so hopefully you found the same. If anyone's got any suggestions for things that they would like to know more about, please let me know. But otherwise, please subscribe to the channel. I'm going to put a lot more work into a few videos in the coming weeks, and yeah, appreciate you being along for the ride. So thanks for your time and have a great day.